Hi, today I'm just doing a quick lesson about diminished chords and the theory behind diminished chords. They can be a bit of a mystery, diminished chords, and they're a bit strange sounding, and they're not chords you can treat in the same way as standard majors and minors, so they're definitely worth a look. You don't get them very often in songs, but when you do get them, you really have to know that they're there and you have to pay attention to them and sort of deal with them in the right way. So they can't be used as substitutes for majors and minors and vice versa. So something like, for example, like a minor 9 chord, that can be used instead of a minor 7, which is like an extension of a minor 7. And a minor 7 can be used instead of a minor. So you start off with a simple chord like a minor, then you make it a bit more complicated, minor 7, make it a bit more complicated, minor 9. And that's how most chords work, but diminished chords are a little bit different. They're kind of like their own type of chord that you should think of separately. Okay, so the way a diminished chord is made is it's a stack of minor thirds, and a minor third on a guitar is the space from one note to the next note 3 frets along. So if I play a note here and go along 3, that is a minor third. Anywhere on the guitar that I do that, they're all minor thirds. So if I take a G, for example, there's a G, go up a minor third, that's that note, B flat, go up a minor third from the B flat, you get D flat, up another minor third, you get E. It's got G, B flat, D flat, E. Now, to make a chord, obviously I've got to play those all on different strings so that I can play them all at the same time. So if I put my B flat on the 3rd string, it's there. What was the next one? The next one was a D flat, which is there. The next one was an E. So I could, instead of going, I could do them like this, which means I can play them all at once. And that is a diminished chord. That's a G diminished chord. Now that's not a standard shape, but that just illustrates how the chord is made. It's minor thirds on top of each other. And what I can then do is try to find a shape that's a bit more convenient to play than that, and a movable shape. That one's not very good because if I try to move that, one of the strings was an open string, so I can't really move it very easily. It'd be a bit of a stretch to try to do it, that shape. So it's not a great example. But a really good shape that most people learn for a diminished chord is this one. Now this is also a G diminished chord. I've got those same 4 notes involved here. They're just not in the same order. I've got a G, a D flat, an E and a B flat. So I haven't put them in that order, but it doesn't matter when you play a chord. It doesn't matter what order the notes are in as long as the chord has those notes in it. So I've got those same 4 notes. They're all contained in there. So this shape, well worth learning if you don't already know it. I've got my first finger on the G, which is 5th fret on the 4th string, and then 3rd finger, fret number 6 on the 3rd string, 2nd finger, fret 5 on the 2nd string, and little finger, 4th finger, fret 6 on the 1st string. So it kind of looks a bit like a D chord that you've moved up and added a finger. You'll know if you've got it right because it will sound like that. If it doesn't sound weird, then you haven't got it right. So that's a G diminished. Right, so I've got those 4 notes. Now you might already know about chord theory, where to have a particular chord you have to have the notes of that chord played together, but they can be in different orders. So when you learn different versions, like say a D chord, these are all D chords, and I'm playing the same notes. D's just got 3 notes in it. I'm just playing them in different combinations and doubling up on some of them. So when I did all those different D chords, I was still just playing those 3 notes in different combinations. And that's how you make a D chord, is with 3 particular notes together. So the same applies to this diminished chord. Now, the thing that's strange about diminished chords, really strange compared to standard majors and minors, is that if I compare this shape to maybe just a major chord, like a major bar chord, there's a G major bar chord, there's a G diminished chord. Now with the bar chord, that's a major chord and it's G because of where I'm playing it. If I move it up one, it's something else. Move it up one, it's something else. And these are all different chords. And there's 12 different ones till I get to G again. So there's 12 different major chords and then I get to G, and they're all different. All of those, you can see that they obviously all contain different notes until you get all the way up to 12 frets up from where you started. Then you get the first lot of notes again, an octave up. So every major chord, all 12 of them, is a different set of notes. Same applies to minor. If I take my second finger away, make a minor bar chord. All of those are different unique sets of notes. Same for most chords. With a diminished chord, if I go back to my G diminished, if I move that up one, it's G sharp diminished or A flat diminished. Move it up one more, A diminished, up one more, A sharp or B flat diminished. So it works in the same way. You can name them and go all the way up one at a time, and you've got all those different diminished chords, 12 different ones, just like the majors and minors. The difference is, when you get to A sharp or B flat diminished, those 4 notes that are in that chord, they are the same 4 notes that were in the G diminished. They're just in a different order. Exactly the same 4 notes, and if you sat and worked them out, you'd find that it is the same 4 notes. We've just changed the order. So the shape's the same, but you end up almost coincidentally with the same 4 notes. So you've got this chord, G diminished, that one, but then this one is G diminished again, but it's also B flat diminished, or A sharp diminished, you could call it. So it's got more than one identity. So that's the strange thing about the diminished chords. So G diminished, G sharp diminished or A flat diminished, A diminished, A sharp or B flat diminished. But this is also G diminished again. So that means if I go up one more, that's the second one again, the A sharp, the G sharp diminished. As well as its own identity, it's got the identity of that second one. And then if I went up one more, I'd be doing the third one again, and so on. So basically, that's G diminished. Go up 3, it's also G diminished. Go up 3 more, it's G diminished again and again. So if you go up in 3s, you're just playing the same 4 notes. So I can call that G diminished, and call that G diminished, and that, and that. And when I get to this one, up 3 more, that's exactly the same 4 notes in the same order, just an octave up as the one I started on. Just like I did with the bar chord. So what this means is there's only 3 diminished chords that are different. That one, and that one. And when you get to this one, you're just doing the first one again, and this one's the second one again. That's the third one again. This is the first one and the fourth one again. That's the second one and the fifth one again, and so on. So they just repeat every 3 frets. And that's really weird because it's very different to other chords. But it means that if you were to just guess a diminished chord, you had to play like a G diminished, just put your fingers anywhere, just randomly. I'll put my fingers on. Okay, I just did that randomly. That will either be G diminished or it'll be 1 fret away. Let's have a look. Actually, it is G diminished. If I randomly put them somewhere else, let's see where I am. Now, I'm not going to be far away from a G diminished. If I just move it back 1, that's a G diminished. So wherever you are, you're never going to be more than 1 fret away from a G diminished. And that's the same for any diminished chord. So any diminished you can think of, put that shape somewhere and you're going to either be on the right chord or you're going to be 1 fret away. Now, I'm not saying that's how you should learn them. It's good to know for certain where you are. But when I personally learnt diminished chords, I just learnt the shape, and someone probably showed me that shape. I didn't know the theory behind it. I didn't know what diminished that was. I just knew it was a diminished. And I used to just guess when I got a diminished chord in a song. and quite often it was right, and that's why. It's because you've got a 1 in 3 chance of getting the right chord. With a major or a minor, you've got a 1 in 12 chance if you just guess where to put it. So they're a bit different, these diminished chords. And another thing which ties in with this is if you're trying to work out which diminished you are actually playing, any of the 4 notes in that shape can be the root note. So this is G diminished because I've decided that's the root note, the G. But this note here, D flat, I could say, well, D flat's the root note, so this is a D flat diminished, or E, or B flat. If I try and put some bass notes on them, it might sort of clarify that a bit. So if I try and play a G bass note with that chord, now it sounds like a G diminished. If I try and play a B flat bass note, a little bit awkward. D flat bass note's going to be a bit tricky to do. I can probably just about get it if I swap my fingers around. And then an E bass note's easy to do. So the bass note sort of changes the identity of the chord. G, if I do G to E, G diminished, E diminished. So that's some sort of basic theory behind diminished chords. The thing to remember, there's other shapes you can learn for a diminished chord, but I just recommend learn that one to begin with. The thing to remember is that the shape has 4 notes in it, and any of those 4 notes can be the root note. So you can use this as a G diminished, or a B flat, or a D flat, or an E. So if I go somewhere else, there, that's the same chord, let's do it somewhere else. So if I go here, any of those 4 can be the root note. So that's an E flat diminished. It's also a G flat diminished, and it's an A diminished and a C diminished, because that's the 4 notes I've got there. And another quick thing, this is useful if you're into more sort of jazz playing, in which case you probably know about this stuff already, but just in case, a diminished chord, for example a G diminished, if I stick with the G for the moment, that is an F sharp 7 chord, which would be that, with the root note pushed up one. So if you're soloing over a G diminished, you can, in some ways, you can treat it a bit like an F sharp 7 chord and solo over an F sharp 7. Now, that's probably another lesson really, but you can do that, and that's how some jazz guitarists approach it. Joe Pass, for example, I know used to do that. He'd think of the G diminished, he'd just treat it as an F sharp 7. But that's another lesson really. So I hope that kind of makes sense. If it doesn't, watch the video again, and if it still doesn't, please let me know in the comments, and I'll try to do a clearer one. If you like this one, please click like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you want to suggest any other theory lesson videos you want to see, then let me know. Okay, thanks.